Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jorvik and today we are going to be discussing my top 7 tips on creating a superhero universe. For the last decade of my filmmaking career, in the background I have been writing my very own superhero cinematic universe. And for the last few months, I have been working with other people to expand and create their own superhero universe, specifically to turn them into a TV series or a feature film. The Spark universe, as I call mine, follows my original superhero team, the Embers. Currently, I am sitting at 48 episodes of a television series, plus multiple spin offs, including short films, feature films, and other TV series, plus roughly 150 characters that get introduced throughout the entire thing. So, needless to say, in terms of having a cinematic universe, I'm pretty much there. I just need money to, of course, fund it. And that's where you guys come in. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not ready to make this project yet. It's going to be something that I do when I am ready to do it. I will say that I have other collaborators who have helped create characters and have even written stories within my universe. And because of that, I can't take all the credit, honestly. I mean, these people are amazing. So, using what I have learned over the last better part of a decade, I thought it would be fun to make this video and kind of discuss my tips or the advice that I give to people on how to build a superhero universe. But before we do that, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to see any more world building videos, please let me know in the comments if there's anything that I left out or if there's something I talked about and you want me to discuss it further. I also want to say that these tips also apply to world building in general, not just superheroes, so please keep that in mind. With that intro out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. Tip number 1 is an obvious one, and that is characters. Characters, in my experience, are the building blocks of your story. I started with one character and then slowly just kind of built the world around him. I do feel like that most of your time will be spent focusing on your characters, at least your main characters. When I start the process of creating a new character, or at least an important character, I start the process by having an interview with them. This is where you develop their backstory, their personality, their emotions, their motives, etc. And this applies to villains as well. What is their backstory, their emotions, their personality, and their motives? Once you create one character, the rest will kind of fall into place. You'll start to learn exactly what kind of dichotomy you want to have with a superhero team or with your single superhero. But before you really dive into creating a whole cast of characters, you do need to focus on your main core in developing their journeys. I'm sure you've heard of the hero's journey as popularized by Joseph Campbell and the importance it has on modern storytelling. I want to do a video solely on that topic and just to showcase how easy it is, one, and two, how I used it for my character. So if you want that, let me know. I should preface that you don't have to use this method by any means. It's just a story element out there that you just have like a template to go off of. But if you are a first-time writer for anything, I think it's a great place to start. Just my opinion. Moving on to tip number 2, and that is settings. Gotham City is just as much a character as Batman is, so it's important to establish a setting that, one, feels both lived in, and two, feels like your character really cares about and wants to protect. Questions you may ask yourself is, where is this city located? Is it coastal or is it landlocked? Is it a city or is it a general region? Does it take place in space, on a different planet? What is the weather like? All of these are just a fraction of the things you need to consider when establishing a setting. For example, my main setting is a fictional city called Bell City, and it's modeled after Seattle in Washington. So a lot of my stories revolve around the docks and shipping lanes, and of course the Sound, which is what the body of water is called that Seattle was settled on, as well as the natural environment that surrounds the city. Now you could have some fun here. You could do a one-to-one and just set your setting in like New York, LA, Chicago, or any other international city. Or you could take elements from different cities and create your own unique new city. Actually, just the other day, at the time of recording this, I helped someone create a new city in the Texas Gulf. From there, you could establish neighborhoods, secret bases for your heroes, secret bases for your villains. Honestly, anything that helps you tell the story. Of course, as long as it makes logistical sense. It's like looking at an open world map in a video game. Like, sure, it doesn't exist, but logistically, it looks like it could exist. So just keep that in mind. Tip number 3 is powers. This one is completely up to you because there are so many ways superpowers could exist in fiction, such as experimentation. There is natural genes, interference from extraterrestrials, radiation, you name it. In my story, it's natural genes. So every few hundred years or so, there is a spike in people born with the spark gene, which is the name of my superpowered people. And my story picks up in the modern day with a new emergence. Powers are something that you can get silly with and also make unique in a way. For example, in my universe, sparks have different colored eyes than humans. One of my characters, Nora, originally had brown eyes, but when her powers manifested, her eyes changed to an orangey yellow color. So really, just experiment with powers. Where do they come from? How do they affect your characters? These questions can really open door for character arcs as well as story related conflicts. So tip number 4 is politics. This one I feel like is really important on a world building level. If your story takes place in a modern day setting, how do normal people react to the existence of superpowered people? Now, we have seen this a lot in the last 10 years with Batman vs. Superman, Captain America Civil War, and most recently, X-Men 97. So it's not a new concept, but I feel like it's a very important development for your characters, your story, and of course your world. And this goes back to creating characters and their ideologies. How do they react to the reaction of their existence? Are your heroes and villains justified by the reactions of events in your world? Is there government oversight, a registration? Are superpowered people second-class citizens and just imprisoned out of fear? Is there a genocide? There are so many avenues you can explore with this topic, and unfortunately there is a lot of real-world conflicts going on in the world that could help fuel the politics in yours. All I say, just do it respectfully, Tip number 5. Faction. Here is where you really get to start building out your world. I can say that I had a lot of fun kind of developing all of the different factions within my universe, and I hope you do too. The first big faction I have is the hero faction, obviously, and that is the Embers as well as like 7 other superhero teams that are around the world. There is the Division, which is my government entity that regulates spark activity. The Order of Astrium, which is my magic faction, and I also have a couple villain groups called the Prestige and the Cult of Dark. And that, my friends, is just the tip of the iceberg. I've also added safe havens, spark sanctuaries, if you will, as well as faction locations, just like in general, The first one is located in Iceland, and it's called Atafolken. I'll put it here. It doesn't mean anything. Sort of, I kind of made it up, but it is the land of the Hildefolk. I'll also put that here, which does come from Icelandic folklore, so keep that in mind. There is also Avalon from Arthurian legend that's located in northern England. And the real world location named Chateau de Almois, I think I said that right, but that is a castle located in Belgium in the Ardennes. There are real world conspiracies related to that castle, so you can look them up if you want, but in my universe, it's the hidden location of the Astrium. I also have a team called the Observatory, which is basically just my version of the Illuminati from Marvel Comics. There is so much world building that you can do to make your universe feel real and alive, lived in. However, I should mention that all of the things I have talked about so far didn't come day one, okay? This is stuff that has been developed over, years as I've expanded my story and explored my world more. Which leads us to tip number 6, history. Like factions, this is something you don't really have to worry about when you first start out, but it is something that you need to keep in the back of your mind. As you build out your world, a lot of questions need to be answered. Were there other superpowered people in the past? Where did they come from? Are there superpowered people in the future? Do gods exist in your world? And did they create superpowered people? When I was plotting the story for The Embers, the first season at least, I created a new team called the Celestials. And the reason was to give precedence to the modern day conflicts my heroes are going to face. Their story starts in 1954 with the emergence of a superhero named Orbital, who is basically the closest thing I have in my universe to Superman. And over the next 4 years, other superpowered people came to light, and together they formed a new team called the Celestials. The American people loved their heroes because it was just like a big slap to the face to America's newest enemy, the USSR. However, in 1958, a new enemy emerged named Blackbird, and in their final battle, Blackbird and the Celestials both disappeared and were never seen again. Of course, this event led to the creation of the Division in 1960, and over the last 60 years, they grew into an internationally backed government agency that threatens Spark existence. You see, by creating a new team, I added 60 years of history that I could explore, and also added context to a lot of the world's political issues in the modern day. But my dear friends, you can go back further. In fact, I went back way further, like 6,000 years further. I might catch a little backlash for this, but honestly, I don't really care. In my universe, the first spark to emerge was a silly little guy who most people know as Adam. Adam was an immortal born in Africa in 4892 BCE. On his travels throughout the known world at the time, he found a slave woman who he bought and freed. I should preface that he did free her, and this woman was named Evella, later known as, say it with me, Eve. Correct. Good job. So, do you see where I'm going with this? Now, I don't want to dive too deeply into their story because I do find it fascinating in my own little headcanon I have going on. But their relationship and the way that they've interacted with the world eventually led to Armageddon, which is the first kind of event that I have in my universe. It's also called the Apocalypse, which of course it is. And it tells the story of the battle between the first superhero team, the Archangels, and the first supervillain team, the Knights of Hell. Obviously, the Archangels win, Knights of Hell are defeated, peace on Earth. 2 members of the Archangels then went on to create 2 more factions, the Sparrowhawks, which later became just the Sparrows, and of course the Order of Astrium. So by exploring mythology and creating your own alternate history, you truly have a sandbox to explore, to develop your heroes, and to build out necessary avenues in order to tell your ever-growing story. Which leads us to our final tip. That is tip number 7. Story. Your story is the most important thing you can create. Next to your characters, of course. Everything we talked about so far fits into what story you're trying to tell. There are hundreds of videos out there that just talk about story development and how to write a story, yada yada. The only advice I could really give, and a lot of writers probably know this and that is to write. Keep writing. And I know that feels like a cop-out answer, but just hear me out for a second. Not one person can tell you how to write. Your style, that is. They could guide you, sure. I've been guided many times. But the only way you'll get better at writing is to write. Write your story, even if you don't share it. Maybe share it a little bit, because you do need feedback. You also need to read. I always encourage that. Read everything that you can, because that also helps you become a better writer. I don't know if people know that, but always read as well. But in terms of creating a superhero universe or story, comic book, whatever you want, start with one character. Where does their story begin? Are they already an established hero? Are we going to see their origin? Once you apply everything that we have talked about, how does their journey begin? How does their journey continue? And ultimately, how does their journey end? Your characters and story need to feel real, relatable, have passion behind them. Because if you don't care about your characters and your story, then your audience won't care about your characters and story. Simple as that. And it's okay to start small, because I know that one day I will see your work on the shelf of a comic book store. Or better yet, on the big screen. If you at all found this video even a little bit helpful, consider liking the video. That would be great. I want to make this more of a series, diving deeper into each of these topics, and then some, of course. So if you would like to follow along, consider subscribing. So I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So go forth and never stop creating. Is that a double negative? It might be a double negative. Anyways, guys, my name is Jorvik. I'll see you in the next one.